Hello, I'm Charlotte Cohen and this is the Scottish Football Podcast, all the news, views and analysis you need on Wednesday the 17th of December. And today we're focusing on two clubs in trouble.
They'll be desperate to get a win on the board, but Motherwell were flying and he was probably thinking we'll do well to take a point.
St Mirren 3, Celtic 1, and that is just about it.
Dundee United host Celtic this evening, with both sides feeling a bit of pressure. 3 defeats on the bounce for Wilfried Nancy, and the new Celtic boss is under pressure already.
That's a lot, especially for the players, for the fans. Me, this is not important. This is more about the fact that we didn't find a way to win this game.
Are some really questioning his future after only 3 games? Dundee United, meanwhile, are on a horrendous winless run.
It wasn't a particularly great game. I don't suppose the guys at the Sports Scene studio will have too many highlights to pull from today's game, but from our own perspective, a really disappointing performance.
All the build-up and analysis you need is right here.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
And I am joined this morning by former Celtic midfielder Scott Allan. Scott, how are you this fine Wednesday morning?
Yeah, I'm good this morning. I'm actually really intrigued to see how this game's going to play out tonight. Listen, I think Dundee United will they'll probably smell blood looking at the Celtic performances over the last 3 games, but they haven't really been free-flowing themselves. But you would imagine a game like that under the lights at Tannadice should bring out a bit more energy than we've probably seen over the last few weeks.
Yeah, definitely. And alongside him, Jim Spence, maestro of Dundee football. Jim, how are you this morning?
Very well, Charlotte, and I'm exactly the same as Scott. I'm kind of intrigued by this one tonight. And United have gone 23 games without a win against Celtic. It's quite a remarkable record, So, as Scotty Boy says there, under the lights tonight at Tannadice, will something give? And both managers under pressure, So it's a fascinating one, I think.
Yeah, well, plenty to get into with Scott and Jim. And let's start with Celtic. I suppose at the start of the season, you wouldn't have thought that they would be one of the clubs in trouble at the moment. Wilfried Nancy's come in, 3 losses in his first 3 games. Scott, his approach just doesn't seem to be working at the moment. Do you think that's down to the system, personnel? What do you think it is?
I think, and the short answer is, I think a lot of it is down to the system. And I'm going with that because what we've seen under Martin O'Neill only 3 games ago. I think we do speak about systems, and Wilfried Nancy's come out saying that it's not that. But we've seen Martin O'Neill simplify it, get his best players in positions where they can go and hurt the opposition, and they were winning games of football. Yes, over 90 minutes, it wasn't fantastic performances, but what it did, it gave them a chance to go and win the games, and that then leads into the personnel there. No getting away from it. Celtic are missing some of their best players, but you still imagine in their squad that there's players to come in, get an opportunity to play at a club at Celtic, that if you get them in areas where they can go and hurt time and time again, then there's more chance of them winning the game. The system at this moment in time for me just isn't working. I think that's very evident, and I think looking at when they went 2-1 down to St Mirren at the weekend, I think that's when you realise how evident the system was working. They didn't pin St Mirren back. Celtic are a team synonymous with having natural width and pinning opposition back. They didn't do that. All they did when they turned the ball over was St Mirren had massive spaces to hit. And to not watch St Mirren over the last year with Wilfried Nancy and know with the two, a young girl, a Lundulu up front, physicality, run the channels, you go with that back 3 and put them under constant pressure. I just thought it was quite bizarre at times why he hasn't changed it. Maeda not really playing in the last line at all. His whole skill set is speed and space to run into, with guys like Tannadice, who had proven under Martin O'Neill that he was back to finding the clever passes that we've seen him play over the last few seasons at Celtic, and within the space of 3 games, all that seems to be undone again.
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody knew Nancy coming in that these were a massive 3 games, top of the table clash against Hearts, that Europa League game, and then obviously the cup final. But Robbie Neilson said last week that in the MLS you've got a bit more time as a coach if you get off to a bad start because your priority is getting into the playoffs. But Jim, surely someone's explained it to Nancy that in Scotland, particularly in Glasgow at Celtic, that time, you don't have it.
Yeah, I had a good chat just the other day with a good pal of mine who knows Celtic very, very well. and big Celtic man, and those were the points he was making. I mean, all of the things that all of the things, that bit of the tactics board and some of the statements post games and all the rest of it, just doesn't gel with what is expected, I think, of a Celtic manager. I mean, there's enormous pressure on him. I don't think he's come from an environment where he has any idea of the kind of pressure that goes with running Celtic. I mean, the situation there at the moment is almost untenable already for Celtic to be going into this game against Dundee United on this kind of run of form. And as Scott said, I mean, Martin O'Neill, after the Brendan Rodgers farrago, Martin O'Neill came in and resurrected the side. Wasn't particularly pretty to watch, but they got the results, and there was a sense of fun actually about Martin's press conferences and all the rest of it, and a sense that Celtic were kind of back as the big dogs in Scottish football. Here all of a sudden they've gone off the rails, and they look like a side completely shorn of confidence. And it wasn't a case on we can get into the budget thing and all the rest of it St Mirren at the weekend, but they were well beaten at Hampden by St Mirren. I'm kind of less. I mean, Scott's played the game professionally. I was only a bungling juvenile amateur player in Dundee, but I mean, I'm less convinced with the tactical side of things. That's not to say it's not important. Than I think the whole thing about attitude and aptitude and desire and hunger and all the rest of it are. Those things should be part and parcel of your makeup as a professional football player, and particularly at Celtic. They are absolutely sine qua nons of playing for the game. Too many players just haven't looked up to it, either tactically, positionally, or hunger-wise for me. And that's something that the Celtic manager is going to have to address. They'll have to address it tonight because, if you lose 4 in a bounce at any club, it puts serious pressure on you. You lose 4 in a bounce at Celtic, you are actually heading into sacking territory. It's there's massive pressure on them tonight. The only good thing you can say is that Dundee United are not on a particularly good run either, so that maybe gives them some breathing space. And I was looking at Big Lee Wilkie, who does a column in the local Dundee Courier along with me, and Lee was making the point the other night, for United going into this game, Celtic still have good players. They've always got good players. Even in their bad times, they've got good players. So realistically, if Celtic actually properly turn up tonight and Dundee United properly turn up tonight, there should be one winner. But given the state, the state of the Celtic team at the moment, and I think the mentality of the Celtic team, Dundee United are actually with a decent shout, I think.
Yeah, you mentioned the mentality, and I thought, particularly in the cup final, I genuinely thought St Mirren just looked like they wanted it more. I thought the Celtic players didn't really look that bothered. Even the scenes at full time, like they looked a wee bit forlorn, but it wasn't gutting stuff for them. So, I mean, there's talk about the players and the confidence. And do you think, Scott, that's the manager? Because we saw, as Jim said, we saw Martin O'Neill getting a tune out of these players, getting these players playing with confidence. But do you think Nancy isn't able to get that out of them? Do you think the players aren't maybe wanting or feeling comfortable playing under him?
I think there's a lack of belief from the players and the manager what they've seen in this short space of time. And it does happen in football. As soon as a manager comes in, they're judging you and you're judging them. You've got experienced players in there who looking at it from the outside, looking in, and body language, as we've all spoke about, it just doesn't look as if there's a cohesion there between the squad and the coaching staff. And I know he's just in the door, so I agree with Jim. 4 games on, if they were to go 4 games without a win at Celtic, it is heading into that territory, as incredible as that is, because you're coming in during the season. But that's because we don't have to look back too far to see what Martin O'Neill done with the team. That's why it's amplified so much for me. But it looks to me that he's lacking the belief from his players. The system is a part of that, no getting away from it. We can say we've Celtic good players, but Liam Scales was probably put more crosses in or had more touches in the final third than some of Celtic's attacking players on Sunday. So that is down to the system. You can't. There's no getting away from that. That is down to the system. Liam Scales is overlapping from left centre back, time and time again on Sunday. And in actual being a miss, because I actually did think he impacted the game, because he's the one who can actually take the ball in and bring guys into play. So he's going to be a miss. Tanekia, sure, away to African Cup of Nations as well. So there's going to be more changes tonight. as for Dundee United, I'll say it again, Jim Goodwin was there on Sunday. You'll smell blood, you want to make it physical, you want to make it scrappy at times, because there just looks as if there's a real vulnerability about Celtic. They looked so disorganised, even when they were in position in attacking areas of the park. So if Dundee United do manage to turn the ball over and look after it a little bit, there'll be areas to go and cause Celtic problems. The question.
Yeah, and we talk about the system, and I think a lot of people, when they saw Anthony Ralston in the starting lineup, thought that he had maybe switched to a back four. He obviously didn't. He stuck with the back three. But Jim, do you think he can or would want to change the system at this point?
Well, he kind of sounds very much like a man who is absolutely certain in his own mind. So if you never ever know. I mean, I'm not everyone else. I've read, what he said to the Celtic board about his style, his philosophy of football, and all the rest of it. But he does sound like a bloke who is very, very certain of his footballing philosophy. And it may well be that he absolutely intends to stick with that. So a clash of styles. More than anything, I think tonight there'll be a clash of attitudes. Celtic, I think, are shorn of confidence, which is unusual in the Celtic side. Dundee United's record isn't great. They were fourth in the league last season, but this season 3 wins so far in 16 league games, and eighth, 15 points behind Celtic. And a side that have been starting games really quite slowly. I mean, although last Saturday against Motherwell was a dreadful game of football, what they did do is they kept a clean sheet. And I think, given that they had somewhere like one win in 11 games this season, I mean that was hugely important to keep a clean sheet. United are, they're delighted to have Ross Graham back in defence, which kind of, I think is a big boost for them. His height, his physicality, his playing ability. They do miss Panush Kamara in the midfield, because he's been he's been a revelation. He's been a force of nature, and to some extent has been the star of a midfield which has been pretty lacklustre at times. And United don't score many. Sartford and Dolchek, I think 4 and 5 goals respectively speaking. But the attitude, I think, tonight will be key. One of the things is, as I said, United have started so many games so slowly. I think tonight they've got to come at the traps flying against the Celtic side, which is kind of short of confidence and short in confidence. And if United can do that and get a grip of the game early on by the scruff of the neck, then I think that they're in with a shout. Because the other thing is, Celtic are coming under serious pressure from. There's a generational thing at play here. I look at it as a big chunk, particularly younger Celtic support. I just think there's an incredible sense of entitlement with them. So they take really, really bad with watching what's happened to Celtic at the moment, because they're so used to seeing Celtic steamroller everything before them. I mean, I've been having a lot of fun on social media with watching guys that are Dundee supporters, or whatever United fans say, my old man didn't see us winning a trophy until he was 49. You boys are complaining you've lost 3 games on the bounce. It's fascinating. That's Scottish football. But I mean, these are unusual times for Celtic to be in the state they're in. In fairness, you could argue they're somewhat unusual times for United to be struggling, having done so well last season. But I think attitude more than tactical nuance tonight, I think, is the key. And this is a Celtic side, I think, whose attitude is undoubtedly in question.
People were waiting to hear what Nancy would say in his press conference yesterday. He basically came out and kind of sort of said he had nothing to prove to anybody. I mean, obviously questions were put to him about the number of defeats in a row, losing the cup final, as you mentioned, Jim. Celtic fans not really used to that feeling that they experienced on Sunday night. But Scott, as somebody who has played football and worked with managers, what's that like when your head coach comes out and says, you've lost your first 3 games, and he's saying, no, I've not got anything to prove?
Well, judging from what we're seeing, I'd be very surprised, Paul, if the players are even watching interviews. If I'm honest, I think what you need to realise in these situations, you see players, and especially when you're a player, when you step out the park, a lot of the time you're thinking about your own performance. That's the first thing, and then second, collectively. But first of all, especially, I think, how can I affect this game with the skill set I've got? We haven't seen that in the last 3 weeks. with Wilfried Nancy, speaking of that, I think it's quite hard as well because he'll know he's under some amount of pressure. So every question is analysed to the absolute maximum, and then you take the sound bites from it. At the end of the day, it's what happens on the pitch. His job's to set his team out and give them the best opportunity to go and win the game. That's what he's got to do. So the press conferences are the press conferences. Depends what you want to take from. Ultimately, he's getting judged on what the fans and what we're seeing during the match day. So tonight, will he change formation? Probably not. It's down to players now. It's generally down to players. Can they produce their moments? And that's why I think even on Sunday, I believe that Celtic would probably win the game just because of the occasion. That there would be players there who time and time again have stepped up for Celtic. Unfortunately for them, it wasn't to be in St Mirren, but absolutely fantastic and rightly deserving winners. For me, it's about, can he rely on the players to do him a turn just now, because they are missing some key players. If they weren't to win tonight, there would be some amount of pressure. You look at a guy like Jota who's been missing. He could potentially be back fit, and Celtic have been through 4 managers. That's incredible, really.
And I mean, we talk about, the pressure that he's under. Is it a ridiculous suggestion? Are we all getting ahead of ourselves to say, will Wilfried Nancy still be in the dugout come January, Scott?
You have to win games. You have to win games of football. It would be an incredible decision from the board, but at the same time, the fans just don't have the buy-in. To me, it looks like the fans don't have the buy-in and the players don't have the buy-in. It's not easy to turn that around. It takes something really, really incredible to turn that around so early on. For me in Glasgow, there's only ever room for one goodie, and right now the goodie's Danny Rowe. That's just how it is in Glasgow. There's always only room for one. People just don't seem to be buying into what they're saying. So ultimately, you have to win games. If you don't, then ultimately there will be scrutiny. January is such an important time for Celtic, especially off the back of the last transfer window. So there'll be a lot of pressure on that. I understand that recruitment for both sides in this city in Glasgow can be difficult, especially with the environment and the pressures week to week. But if Celtic go into January and they haven't won a few games, there's a few teams who could put a run together and be really closing in on Celtic, and that would then, I would imagine, put the board under pressure if Wilfried Nancy can't get a Celtic team firing.
Now, Jim, Dundee United, 7 games without a win. What is going wrong at Tannadice?
Well, they've conceded first in 9 of their last 10 games. That's one thing. Don't score enough, conceding too many. They just, on the face of it, well, early in the season, well, not on the face of it. I mean, they were playing some really, really good stuff early in the season, but kind of the back line has been, they've been kind of caught positionally, tactically, and sometimes poor in the air. The midfield hasn't been nearly as dominant as it should be. I mean, Sibbald has been back at I'm a big Craig Sibbald fan. I like what he brings to the game. He scored a couple of crackers sometimes. I mean, I really like him. I think he's got to be a really central part of the team. And when he's there and Kamara is there as well, I think they're a much better midfield. But they struggle to score as well. I mean, on the face of it, there's a front line there with Sapsford, the Australian, who is very tidy. He scored 4. Dolchek, who while he was scoring the 5 goals, he's in on loan. United have an option to buy him. But it's just gone. He's gone off the boil. He's been on the bench for games, coming on. Fatah, who again is on loan. He looks a really tidy player. He scored a lovely goal the other week. Kind of going jumping by about 4 men and putting one away from the edge of the box. So there is undoubtedly talent there. It's just kind of joining it up, and they've been on this run where, as I say, they've had 1 win in 11 games, and that obviously has an effect. I mean, start of the season, they did well, and one of the issues is they've actually played better against the bigger sides, if I can put it like that. They've performed well against the likes of Rapid Vienna, Hearts, Hibs, Rangers, twice in fact against Rangers. but they've let themselves down in other fixtures, So there's a combination of things going on there. Far too slow in coming at the traps has been one big issue for them. Defensively, kind of sometimes just all over the place. Although at the weekend, they looked really solid, three at the back. I think Ross Graham makes a big difference coming back. The three at the back, and you've got kind of Strain and Ferry on the two wides, the pushing on full backs. I think they looked a lot more solid. It wasn't bonny to watch. It was not at all nice to watch, but it was effective. They didn't concede. And I think that was quite important. And that will give them, I think, a real confidence boost ahead of the game against Celtic tonight. And they'll need it. We can sit here and pontificate all we like about Celtic, and they are under massive pressure, but they still do have very good players. Celtic aren't a team full of duds. They've got issues tactically. They've got issues, I think, managerially and all the rest, and they've got issues confidence-wise. But if they turn up and they're really at it, they are still a very good football side.
And you mentioned Dundee United's kind of difficulties at the top end of the pitch, struggling to score, but they've also had their fair share of problems at the other end. Kucherenko has come under a lot of pressure recently, out injured at the moment. Scott, do you think that gives him some much needed time to maybe build back his confidence after a kind of difficult period for him?
For Kucherenko?
Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, listen, you can step away, but again, I'll go back to what happens when you get given opportunities at clubs to go and be number one. It was questionable whether Jim Goodwin was going to take him out anyway for me. And then when you do find your way out the team, it's then trying to find your way back in, especially for a goalkeeper. It's such a specific position. If Dundee United get to January, do you imagine that would be a position they're looking at to get someone in the door, and then it can be very hard for a goalkeeper to then find his way back into the team. I'm with Jim in terms of the midfield. When Sibbald and Kamara are playing, I think that's the best balance. Seen a lot of Kamara. Sibbald, I know over the years, a lovely footballer, but Kamara is just very industrious, covers the ground, athletic, can drive with the ball. They're a far better team when he's playing for them. There's no getting away from that. As for the strikers, for me, Sapsford are light, full of energy. They do have moments. These are the games, tonight are the games that they take care of themselves for, especially when you're at Dundee United, at Tannadice. They take care of themselves. Fans will be right up for it. But you have to make it uncomfortable for Celtic, and that's where that fast start is so important. Can you make the Celtic players as uncomfortable as possible early on in the game? Don't let them settle. Disrupt their rhythm. That is the chance. That's how you have a way of winning this game tonight. But at the same time, speaking about creating chances, when the chances come your way, you have to take them in these games.
Right, well, I'll just get both of your predictions for tonight. Jim, I'll come to you first. Will we be talking on tomorrow's podcast about Wilfried Nancy's fourth defeat in a row? Do you think Dundee United have enough? What are your score predictions?
No, I'm going for a draw. I'm playing the safe bet. I've
on the fence, nice.
I've not seen enough from United to think they're going to blow Celtic out the water, I have to say. Certainly improved at the weekend, but, it'll be a tall order, I think. And Celtic cannot get any worse. So, I think probably the best United can hope for tonight is a draw. If it was going any other way, if United were to lose this one, my suspicion is that you guys will be very, very busy tomorrow on the news desks, but I'm going for a draw tonight.
I like you saying things can't get any worse for Celtic. We could clip that up. That might come in handy.
They really can.
Scott, what about you? Do you think Celtic?
I'm going to go with a draw. I'm not going to commit to either. I just haven't seen enough from both sides over the last few weeks. Generally, I think this is a game. It comes down to the individual battles all over the park and moments. Who defends in the moments, and if there's chances, who's going to take them? So I'm going to go with a draw. I think just in terms of Celtic's vulnerability for me at this moment, and I know what it's like when you have these games where the Old Firm haven't maybe been doing so well, when you've got them midweek at night, they kind of take care of themselves in terms of that energy and motivation. So it's going to be fascinating, but I'll go. That's my long answer. Short answer, I'm going to go a draw.
Boring. Both of you are being boring, but I can understand where you're coming from. Well, that's all we've got time for. Many thanks to Scott and Jim, and thank you for listening. Remember, we're here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast bright and early every day, so make sure you don't miss out. Subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on in your phone. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll catch you again very soon.
For everything you need to know about your team this season, download the BBC Sport app. All the latest news, goal updates, stats and scores, and insight and analysis. Just select your club to get the biggest stories and best content at your fingertips. What a result. Download the BBC Sport app for everything you need to know about your team this season.